Wonder Park. Who doesn't enjoy a fun time at an amusement park? You go around a bunch of rides, maybe play some games in the hopes of winning a plushie, grab some snacks like popcorn or cotton candy, and just invest yourself in the atmosphere. I'm a lot more of a theme park guy myself, like the ones from either Disney or Universal, but I do occasionally like the smaller Carnival or Six Flags environment. Heck, I remember as a kid playing some Roller Coaster Tycoon. And by playing, I mean more experimenting how far the coasters would fly before the passengers crashed to their inevitable doom. Of course, we've all heard of rides that make you feel like you're in an animated film, but imagine an animated film where you can get the sensation of amazement and fun of the rides. Sounds pretty awesome, right? Well, since no one has any plans of their own to make that kind of feature, Paramount Animation decided to take that opportunity to create their own animated amusement park, which coincidentally was the title before switching it to Wonder Park. So now that we've hopped on board our vehicles and are keeping our arms and legs inside at all times, will this bring a whole new meaning to a roller coaster of a movie? Or is this the kind of ride that would make you throw up during? Let's find out. The story. Come join this animated adventure as our little girl hero enters this magical land and meets up with funny talking animals. How many times have you heard that before? Conceptually, the film is already off to a bad start just by how the story sounds completely generic. And the more it dives deeper into the plot, the more problems would appear to show that the issue is far bigger than one could imagine. The movie is filled with a whole bunch of cliches to the point that they are the driving force that pushes the film forward, delivering one predictable moment after another. Seriously, with every scene that happens, one could think of 5 other movies that already did that. But it wouldn't be surprising, since the plot itself isn't necessarily the focus. As the movie is called Wonder Park, it would mainly try to make the world building its main selling point, to transport audiences to this magical amusement park filled with unbelievable rides that came out of the imagination of a kid. At first, it did seem appealing and almost engaging to see what else the park would offer. But too bad this movie is mostly unpleasant. I know one could say that the execution can help make a bad concept look good, but this is what really hurts the movie. Audiences would come in thinking that they would be in this lively and colorful park throughout the feature, you know, something like this.
Wonderland is now open! Boy, it's gonna be a great day!
1, 2, 3, north!
But those moments only happen in the beginning and the end. The rest is just June emotionally struggling to deal with her mom getting sick in the real world and trying to survive Wonderland. By the way, no, the park itself is not called Wonder Park, which is now a decomposed wasteland filled with evil monkey plushies called chimpanzombies. It results in the film to become unexpectedly depressing and sometimes spiteful, where it's near impossible to even have a good time when watching it. It does try to brighten the mood with some humor, but the jokes are not effective at all. However, if there is one thing that I could see that it tries to do with the movie in order to give it some substance, it would be with the message of dealing with the possibility of losing a loved one, and how you should not lose your spark on the way. I could see how this could help resonate with some people to connect with the movie, but even at that, again, the execution ruins it by often feeling unfocused about it, and even when it gets to those parts, the film had to stop in order to talk down to audiences and be too on the nose about it. Sure, it wants to tell it to kids, but even without that, there are better ways to say it and certainly better ways to conclude it. The story had an idea for a fun-filled and heartfelt movie, but the execution failed so hard that it ultimately became unenjoyable. The animation. Despite having a script that is anything but, I will give it credit that the animation is pleasant to watch. For the most part. As it does focus more on its amusement park and having a rather hefty budget, the movie is visually ambitious to make the world larger than life. Possibly the best aspect of the feature is when it unleashes all of its creativity to create the unique rides of Wonderland and sometimes presenting them at their full potential to show how they work. This allows the environment to become immersive as a large, one-of-a-kind park that a kid would think up that's like it was run purely by magic. On top of that, it would also include some scenes where the characters would go on some of those rides in order to incorporate a fast pace and try to emulate the sensation of being in those rides for some intensity. When looking at the people and the animals, the character animation would stay down to earth as possible in favor of having realistic movements. However, it doesn't stop the animators to make the most out of these limitations to make them as energetic as possible.
Skipping to safety! Skipping to safety! I'm almost out of danger! So cute!
But so naughty.
As for the designs, the characters would have a cartoonier look. And since Nickelodeon was involved with this, it's almost comparable to the characters of Jimmy Neutron. However, it might not be the best artistic choice for this, as it feels like the characters constantly have this clash between the real textures and movements with the abstract look, almost as if it's not sure what it wants to be. But with this grand and detailed animation, there is one major setback to all this. It's not necessarily the visuals' fault, but rather, it doesn't let out its full potential. Because of the gloomy tone of the script set up for the movie, it doesn't give much of a chance for Wonderland to present itself at its best. Like I said before, it rarely shows the park when it's at its most lively and colorful, and would usually present the place as gritty, abandoned, and have all the color sucked out of it. The animation could have done more to have Wonder Park to be a real wonder, but the animators did do the most with the materials they were given. The characters. Okay, so the adventure is just downright depressing, but maybe having some enjoyable characters can help make the ride feel smoother, right? It would, if the characters were enjoyable in the first place. On top of a terrible story, the characters would make things worse by adding either a mean-spirited tone or some annoyance to make the experience even more unbearable. Starting off with the imaginative girl herself, June is the true creator of Wonderland and is depicted more as the eccentric inventor that wants to create cool things for her amusement park, but that can sometimes lead her into trouble. While I do see how it tries to develop her with her feelings regarding her sick mom, it's tough to root for her when she feels unnatural as a kid. Maybe it's more the dialogue, but she talks way too much and has an abnormal smart-aleck attitude where she mostly uses her wit and sharp thinking to get out of a sticky situation. It's hard to be engaged with her because she's less believable as a character than the amusement park she thought up.
Who said it couldn't be done?
They.
Who's they?
It's just an expression. Don't bust me on a technicality.
The other characters in the real world aren't really noteworthy, as they deliver little personality or substance to this other than the mother and maybe Banky, who is June's buddy that has a crush on her. As for the animals of Wonderland, they do serve a good functioning role in the park. Like Gus and Cooper are the repair beavers, Greta is the motivator of the team, Steve is the safety officer, Boomer is the welcomer, and Peanut is the star of Wonderland who is credited to create all the rides with his magic marker. While their roles at the parks are great, their roles in the movie are quite the opposite. When June visits the now-defunct land, the mascots are either a lot more bitter or they are just one-note failed comic reliefs. Greta acts more like a douchey pessimist, Boomer keeps sleeping at random moments, Gus and Cooper are like fighting siblings, Steve has a crush on Greta, and Peanut is the kidnapped one that the gang has to find to fix everything. But when June finds him, well, I think you know the rest. Sure, these characters can be pretty bad, but there is something that I can say that is actually good about them. Like with the animators, the actors did make the most out of their voices. While it is true that the dialogue and the writing gives no hope that they would make any character actually fun, it is easy to tell that the actors did try their best with the materials they were given. But even with great actors, they wouldn't be enough to prevent the characters from making the feature feel as unpleasant as it is. Wow, I'm genuinely surprised. I didn't expect much from it, but I actually hate this. This movie is awful. Wonder Park is a broken down ride that's just all around miserable. as in the movie is crafted miserably and it would leave audiences feel miserable. Sure, it does supply some good animation and talented voice actors, but they are not enough to mask the horrible writing that supplies an embarrassingly predictable story, annoying characters, unfunny gags, and a very unpleasant tone that looms most of the feature. The only thing that's more hateable than the movie itself is the film's original director. By the way, the movie doesn't have any credited directors, which is kinda weird. Of course, my recommendation is to just skip this one. I wouldn't even recommend this to kids, not because it's bad, but because it's not fun and kinda mean. Now, I know this could sound weird, but if there's one thing that I would recommend instead of this, play Epic Mickey. Say what you will about the gameplay, but it has a very similar story to Wonder Park, but way better executed with engaging characters and giving a dark, unique twist to Disney iconography. I bring this up because it's eerie how nearly identical the plot of both these projects are. Maybe it's more of a coincidence, but it's almost like the writers copied most of the plot of Epic Mickey and tweaked it to make it their own. This is a ride that makes Stitch's Great Escape look like extraterrestrial, and for that, I gotta give this the AniMat's seal of garbage. Maybe the Nickelodeon show will be better, but the movie certainly ain't a good first impression.
Everyone look away! I'm going to throw up.